Cool. All right. And we should be live. Thank you everyone for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. Today is the 20th of October in the year 2020. Great, so getting things started, does anybody have any announcements?
We do have announcements. I will make those on behalf of Jory this morning. Tuesdays, of course, are our favorite days because we get to see you all so much. After the CPC meeting today, actually at 11 a.m. Pacific, we have our standards working group meeting. There's a standards workspace in our Slack channel if you want more information. At 12 noon Pacific, we have our OpenJS Foundation Marketing Committee meeting. Again, those are all on YouTube as well, so if you want to take a look or participate. And at 1 p.m. Pacific is our OpenJS World 2021 Program Committee meeting. And particularly for our project reps, we'd really love to have a representative on that program committee as we start thinking through tracks, issuing CFPs for early next year, and planning for our 2021 virtual event, which is going to be in early June. So that's all on my side for announcements.
Is that, I'm sorry to jump in here, that last meeting you talked about, the program planning committee?
What's that? Yeah, the program committee.
Yeah, what time, when is that one? Is that today?
That is at 1 p.m. Pacific.
Okay.
Do you have that? We changed the time. It typically was Monday mornings, but now we've changed it to Tuesdays.
I don't have it, and I don't see it on the calendar either. I don't know if that's something you wanted public or not, but
yeah, it's typically not public. We take project reps and folks from the marketing committee, but if someone is interested in participating, contact me, and I'm sure we could use your help.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to join if I can.
Okay, I will forward that to you and make sure that's circulated.
Actually, maybe you can forward it to me too. Just I'm interested to know when and how often, that kind of stuff. Awesome.
Yeah, and we're in addition to content, we're thinking through how we even structure the event next year. Is it 1 day, 2 day, 3 days? Last week we had this year, I guess it was, we had a whole week. So we're just trying to work out what we're going to do and looking through a lot of experiences from the other tech conferences that have been happening. Great. So pulling data to make those decisions.
Excellent. Another announcement? Michael, did you put?
Yeah, I had just wanted to say it's Node.js 15.x was released today. Yay. So hooray, that's our next major. And 14.x goes to LTX next week. So lots of excitement this week and next.
Yes, for sure. Lots of excitement. Great. Let me drop this link in here for Toby. Thank you for joining, my friend. Cool. Getting into the agenda then. First on the list here is develop a growth plan template. This is an issue. And is this their pull request related to it, right? Trying to bop around here. Nope, this is the kind of top level issue, 592. But don't we have a growth plan template? Am I crazy? Toby?
Yeah, there is one. I'm sorry, it just turns out my camera is not working. I have to log out and log back into Zoom. Yeah, there is a growth plan, a pull request somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. I'm actually not on top of things for the CPC at all this week. So
647.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad some people are.
And it looks
Blink.
like it's pretty much ready to land.
I think you had some comments that I had to integrate. That
Yeah, okay.
And I have a thing that's in a tab on my browser somewhere that's been sitting there for like probably over a week if I haven't lost it in the meantime, that tried to address this. I will get back to it shortly. And also, I don't think it has, it has to land in the other repository is my feeling, but I might be confusing this with another one. So regardless, I know I have work to do and I haven't got into it yet, and then I am planning to, but probably not the next week.
Okay. All right, cool. I added a couple of related issues, so maybe that will kind of show up properly. I'm not sure if I did that right. Yeah, looks like I did. Cool. Great. All right. Well, we'll move that along in the coming days or whatnot. Thanks, Toby. I guess relatedly, that's copied and pasted. Okay, cool. Next on the agenda here is the work in progress proposal to remove the growth stage. We've got some comments here. I guess, Toby, this is kind of on your plate too. You want to give us an update or anything here? This is proposal to remove the growth stage. I guess we just probably need people to take a look at this since it's something we've been discussing, but it's a big change.
I think it was like we wanted to see what the growth plan templates look like, and I wonder if we should like remove some of these from the agenda and leave like one of them as a reminder. Just because, like,
which maybe that one issue, which is probably, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, I feel like we created one issue that I always am confused by, but maybe that's supposed to be like kind of a parent issue. So maybe that's sort of the process. I'm not sure. But you were going to say, Michael?
Right. Yeah, I think just like talking about one of them, because I think most of the times when we've talked about, it's like, let's see how the new growth plans that are developed look like, then we can decide whether we should remove it as a stage or not, unless somebody wanted to champion it separately, which I don't think we had anybody saying, oh yeah, we need to do that. So I'm just thinking, like, the review, like the develop annual review process for projects, that's maybe the one we could leave on with a reference to the different ones that we need to look at, or I don't know, just thinking, because we seem to talk about them each week but say the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, I think removing the growth phase doesn't necessarily need to be dependent on any sort of growth plan, because I feel like growth plan templates, different projects could have different ideas of what a growth plan might be. I think just the idea of 2 project phases rather than the third with growth there, I think could be standalone. I don't know what other people think.
I would agree with you, Joe, actually, on this point, though I also get Michael's point, which is it's pointless to have these things show up every week to just discuss them again if there's no progress made. And I apologize for the no progress made. But I also think that we have to acknowledge that folks have like a whole bunch of things going on and you can't necessarily like have updates on a weekly basis. And maybe we could have something to say, hey, can we raise those back like in a month or so, or have sort of like a slower sort of like cycle to make sure we don't lose track of stuff. But like maybe have like an in progress thing, or I don't know, some kind of label that would help this.
I like in progress, because I think like one thing I think that keeps, for me personally, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but keeps me moving on things is just, okay, that CPC meeting is coming up. Right. So got to get some stuff done. So I wonder, I like that in progress projects. I don't know.
One thing we've done over in Node in the TSC is we have what we call strategic initiatives that have champions. And then in every meeting, we do an update on the strategic initiatives, but it's not necessarily expected that we're going to have a full discussion on them. In fact, it's the opposite. It's expected that it will just be kind of like an update, and sometimes that update even just happens in text in the issue. So it might be like, to borrow some work terms, like we have epics, kind of, which are like these really big initiatives that we are doing that like are ongoing. And it might be reasonable to kind of, you know, switch the discussion where like it might still be like we could just do a review of like all of these epics that are in flight, and like separately build an agenda that's based on like specific items that we have active or like known discussion around.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was getting. Like, some of these things can clearly be done in parallel, but if we only have one champion moving them along, they'll probably only move one of them along at a time, back to Toby's point, right? And there's no point saying, hey, these 3 different things when we know you're just working on one. So that would be one, like, you know, we could create the strategic initiatives as a separate thing, or we could create an issue, which is sort of the umbrella issue, and just leave that one on and say, okay, what's new on that? I mean, that way it would just automatically, if it was tagged, show up on the agenda versus having to create a separate list of strategic initiatives or whatever. But either I think would work pretty well.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry, I've
I'm
lost
taking
a
note to look
bit
that
of
further.
track on this one, but did we have something in progress regarding actually reaching out to the projects that are currently in growth stage about how they feel about things related to this?
I don't think that was brought up, or if it was, I don't think it was something. I don't think anyone ran with it. Let's put it that way.
I think that's the way I remembered, is that like it was like, yeah, that's interesting, but you know, Toby's was like, well, I only got so much time, so the thing you're actually moving forward is helping to put together growth plans for AMP, and I think along with Chris for Mocha, right? And that was kind of the next step. Once you'd gotten through that, then maybe looping back to look at the removing the stage or not made sense might be something you were going to pick up.
Right, but 650 is like a pull request to remove the stage. So, you know, there is work going on both. But yeah, I mean, like, we can, I mean, essentially we can do both in parallel here, or we can decide that they're sequential. I agree that Emily's suggestion to get input from growth projects could be interesting. But I think we've sort of like discussed that thoroughly already, and we're sort of not really inclined to see this sort of like graded valuation thing too much. That was my understanding from previous discussions.
I guess my logic point here is that I don't think we can honestly do a good decision on removing or not removing the growth stage entirely before we actually get input from the projects that are currently in growth stage.
Agreed. Like, that's my perspective. Like, you need, before we suddenly tell people, hey, you're in a different stage, they definitely need to be consulted and in the loop. And
Yeah, and I think if we position it as, do you have any objections to this? Something that we've discussed a bunch at the CPC. You know, this is what we're looking at doing. Are there any objections from you on the project? Rather than opening it up for more discussion necessarily, which I'm happy for input. I'm just saying framing is sometimes. Sorry if it's noisy over here. I've got a puppy. Thanks for your help, Miles. Oh, he's gone. Okay. All right. So I've got a couple of notes here to look at a couple of these things, and maybe I'll ping Jory about, you know, some sort of a message out to growth projects, and you know, I'll look at trying to create some sort of epic issue, if that's the way we want to track this and a number of other things, frankly. That we should make sure don't kind of fall by the wayside. I'll try to work on that this week. I'll show the puppy near the end. I don't want to derail too much. Cool. Anything else on this issue before we move on to next items? Next up is, again, issue 649. Should we have a lightweight mechanism to spin off ad hoc meetings? I feel like a ding dong when I see these things. I know we've talked about a bunch and I'm not sure what the status is exactly. But I think we've landed on doing some working sessions, right? And potentially at some point creating a template to help people if they wanted to spin off a working group meeting. Is that accurate?
I think we decided, I think from what I remember, and someone tell me if I'm wrong, I think the decision was to start with the working sessions. I think we kind of got hijacked because I think we started talking about the working sessions in this meeting. And I don't remember if we came to a resolution about the ad hoc thing.
Yeah, I'm looking now and I don't remember exactly where we landed.
I think I kind of remember it as we were going to try it out. Sorry, Robin.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have more working sessions. And I don't know, just for me, having a template for an ad hoc sounds like a lot of sort of pre-work where it might become a blocker to getting the work done. I don't know.
I think the template is more like, if you want to create a doodle, here's the link. If you want to, here's the free kind of Zoom room that we always have available for an ad hoc, like
awesome.
That kind of stuff.
Not to structure an agenda. Okay. Oh, yeah. Totally. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was more help of like, we're all trying to figure this out and using our own tools. And it would be ideal if if there was a process to run this, because it actually takes time. But I think you're all right that we ended up saying, let's try to have more work sessions during those weekly calls and see if we still need those ad hoc meetings in the future.
I'm just taking a couple of quick notes here on this to see if I've got this right. So
I think there was this tension, sorry, Joe. I think it was this tension between wanting to run more of those meetings as working sessions in the weeklies. And also some people were like, well, I'm not really interested in that topic. Why do I have to sit through those? And I think like we didn't really resolve that tension.
I think if it's if we're using the overflow time of the meeting, once we get through the agenda, then people can drop if they want, right? I don't think that's too much of an impact. Is that correct?
That works for me. I mean, I wasn't complaining personally.
So I've got here, so go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, I'm writing up this comment saying, for one, consensus is to use CPC meeting time beyond agenda to do some working session work. Another idea is to create a working session meeting template that would provide info on the following: link to Doodle calendar scheduling, Zoom link from OpenJS account, HackMD or Google Doc link. Is there anything else that we think would be useful in a template like this?
I think that's a good start.
Okay. All right.
So concrete outcomes, do we want actually to create that template and have it somewhere in the repository? Like is a pull request a concrete outcome of this?
Yeah, that would be great.
Can someone that is familiar with the tools actually volunteer to do this? I mean, I'm pointing the fingers at Brian Warner, who has already too much on his plate. I know that. Or Jory who isn't there. So yeah. But I think it would be easier if it was someone who actually knew which tool, rather than actually have someone go ask for this stuff.
Well, I think what might even be helpful to get it moving is if someone just created a PR for an issue template, and then Brian could drop in and say, here's the link for that, here's the link for that.
Fair enough. I volunteered to do the pull request in that case.
Great. Oh, and Brian's here. Hi, Brian.
Hi, just joined. Actually, I just
noticed.
Dropped in right as my name. Right as my name was called.
I saw your name pop up, and I'm like, aha.
Is the question about adding Zoom links and things like that so that people have them available to use?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
that's easy.
Yeah. Doodles and things. Yeah.
Doodles and things. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Happy to help coordinate on this. And it definitely does make sense to have a central calendar for all of this so that we don't have collisions. So easy enough to do.
I guess that's the other thing. If you are making a working group meeting, we should have a little note in the templates to say ping ops to add it to the calendar kind of thing too.
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, and then I think if we could just all agree that whatever meeting is on the calendar is the one that has the primary rights to the Zoom link. So that, for example, ad hoc meetings don't displace scheduled ones, that sort of thing. That's probably about it. That'll help control traffic.
That's
All right,
good.
great.
Thanks.
I updated the comment to add the ping about the calendar. Cool. All right. Well, great. That's progress. So yeah, Toby, if you want to just drop a meeting template in there and to, I don't think we have anything yet, right? Any issue templates? Doesn't look like. Oh wait, hang on. We have pull request templates, but that's it. Workflows, but the .github directory is there, so drop it in there.
Are you suggesting making that as an issue template?
Yes.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Makes sense. Absolutely.
Cool. Great. All right, cool. That's some progress there. And I put some notes in the issue itself so we know. Excellent. Next up, I'm gonna ask Robin if she's got any examples of successful applications that she can share with us.
Yes, I just dropped in a comment.
Oh, great.
I'll work on adding the other 3, but we offlined and we all decided, yeah, we need to have a more uniform way, a more discoverable way of filling these out and sharing them with the world. So we're creating a web form to do that. So.
Great. And you're saying for people who want to submit an application, making that more standardized, or just the sharing of successful ones?
Both. Yeah. I
Okay.
think sometimes some things, so you can find it either on our website and GitHub, right? To get to the one same place, right?
Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Excellent.
Cool.
Thank you. This next one is issue 632, provide implementation guidance for DCO CLA. Brian has experimented with some implementations of this. Anything new from you, Brian?
This is my week to get it done. So I think a week ago I said give me 2 weeks. So things have unblocked. So I'm hoping to have something we can review by the next meeting.
Great. And I meant to comment earlier too when Toby was talking about like things that are kind of in progress and there's not much of an update. There's no like just saying it's in progress or next week or whatever is always fine. I know we all have lots going on, so never any guilt or anything like that. Cool. Next on the list is issue 592, develop annual review process for projects. I think this is kind of related to what we were talking about earlier. We have some stuff happening. I'm not sure if there's too much to talk about on this issue. Anybody have anything they want to add or share or anything? If not, then we will continue on. And if I am able to look at kind of an overarching epic around this sort of work, I will look at that issue, pull anything needed from there, and determine whether it needs to be closed or what have you. Excuse me. Cool. Last issue, which I moved to the bottom to segue into kind of a working session, is the simplify the proposal process that Miles created September 2nd. We talked about it last week. Let me actually, I wrote this down somewhere, I think in our Slack. I pinged kind of what I synthesized as the takeaways from our conversation. And that consensus was remove the term staging, 2 phases, incubating in terms of the proposal process, incubating and ready for review/approval. As many PRs as you'd like through the incubating process, essentially providing snapshots. PR to move artifacts into place is the ready for approval phase, and a desire for a definition of done, perhaps some sort of checklist. And I can add that list to the notes here. Oops, there we go. And it's kind of in markdown format. So does anyone want to open up that file and drive kind of implementation of these ideas, or move it forward in that regard?
I'm happy to open it up, and or somebody else I think was about to volunteer.
Emily? Just kidding. Cool. If you want to do it again, Michael, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay. So this is the proposal process, right?
Yeah, staging. It's called. Sorry, go ahead.
Staging process. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which I think, number one, we should rename it, because I always don't find it when I go to look for it. So if we're going to remove the term staging, we should just rename it to proposal process, I think.
Sounds good to me.
An initial step. While you're,
So should it be called proposal process?
I think so. Is there anything more to add to that that would make it more descriptive, or does that seem good enough? I think it's fine, because the definition there makes sense. Can you increase your font, Michael, for those of us following along?
Yeah, let me, is this going to, does that do the trick?
It's better.
Still too small?
Quick question. Is there any restriction on who can be a champion?
So typically in Node, the champion was usually a member of the committee that is, in charge of the initiative. So like, community committee or the TSC. But that's a good question. I mean, I think, so where's the wording that we're looking at here?
Oh, I'm looking at line 11. They have a short name and identified champion. Just like if someone's looking at this, if someone says, I want a proposal, or I want to make a proposal, and then they pull up this document, then like one question they might have is who can be the champion. I think it's reasonable to restrict it to being a CBC member, for example, or a foundation member or whatever, but like whatever it is, I was just hoping we could document that.
No, I think I'm glad you brought it up. To me personally, I think anybody should be able to suggest something, but maybe we can change the language there to say, a champion should be identified early in the process or something.
I mean, like, so in TC39, the way we generally do it is that like anyone in the world can create a proposal and author one, but for the sake of having every single person's random idea being like not being considered a stage 0 proposal, the like sort of implicit undocumented convention is that you have to have the author has to either be a delegate or has to have a champion who's a delegate, or it has to be on a proposal agenda. Like, in other words, like there has to have been a step taken towards presenting it. And, it's fine to like presenting it at a meeting requires that it has a champion. So like, I don't know, it's sort of the net effect is that anyone can suggest something, but the committee won't consider anything really that a committee member hasn't chosen to champion.
I like the CPC membership as a requirement because that's not actually limiting anyone from being able to do it if they care enough about it.
Right. It's just like, in other words, I think it's useful to put a very low friction gate to prevent any random idea from consuming all of our energy and time.
Yeah.
But it won't necessarily be landed. Like a stage 0 or an incubating proposal I could see anybody proposing it and proposing to be the champion, but it requires approval to land. And if it didn't make sense, we could not land it, right?
Oh, of course. It's just that by the creation of the PR itself, like places some demands on our time in that we have a GitHub notification. We have some stuff to read. We may have some comments to read and supply, you know.
So would you say that the low barrier of someone, you know, some random person being able to create an initial stage 0 PR without a champion identified, are we trying to avoid even that?
No, I would argue against that because it's too restrictive. Like if someone has a great idea, but they don't know who we are individually or how to do that or have no experience doing that. So I like the find a champion early in the process.
Mm-hmm. Could we make it so that like they're asked to open a PR as a draft until they have a champion? And then like the expectation is, as Robin says, that through that process, they will locate one, but then draft status will kind of delineate.
Yeah, I would expect that, you know, all are welcome to come to our CPC meetings and present their idea and, you know, but you're right. I mean, having that first lens through a PR makes sense as well.
Yeah.
But having the ability to know somebody to champion at the beginning, I think is too restrictive. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that in essence, sorry, go ahead.
I think what effectively we're proposing here is that we drop stage 0 as a stage at which things are merged and consider PR for stage 1 to possibly sometimes be in what is currently stage 0 when they are proposed by outsiders and do not yet have a named champion on them.
Right. Well, I mean, the language that GitHub uses when it's not a draft is ready for review. And that actually seems appropriate here, right? Is that anyone can open a PR. It is marked ready for review when they have located a champion, which they don't need to do in advance of opening the PR. And anyone with write access on the repo can flip the PR, you know, back and forth between those statuses. So it doesn't matter if they open it with the correct status in the first place. We can just kind of set it to draft as needed or set it to ready for review when someone wants to, you know, champion it. That seems to me like a really nice balance between what Robin's talking about, which is like allowing anyone to submit a PR and removing the necessity of knowing the right people in advance, but also like provides some ability for us not to get inundated with things that we all need to pay attention to immediately, or, you know, in the short term.
So essentially we have incubating proposal, but we should have some sort of asterisk here, some sort of note that if you are not a CPC member, one needs to be identified as a champion, and that shouldn't prevent you from opening a PR, but please make it draft.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Cool. Yeah, and then my original question was just kind of clarifying who can be a champion, and as long as we say who that is, CPC member or whatever, then that person's question is answered.
Yeah. And I think we should have that in parentheses or something after identified champion.
We could even link to the GitHub team that contains the potential champions, which would also sort of help ameliorate the need to know who to ask.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering if it, like, limiting the champions to CPC members is, like, are we really going to get that many random proposals that?
I know. Are we solving a problem that we wish we had?
Oh yeah, no, I don't actually care who it's restricted to. We could say regular members. It's just like we could say anybody. I just kind of we should be clear, I think, about who is eligible, no matter what the size of that group is.
The reason why I suggested CPC member is that if somebody comes in who cares enough to put in a request, a proposal for anything, and does not immediately get a champion, we can then easily tell them, oh, you know, you could also become a member of the CPC, just, you know, actively participate, and then you can champion this yourself.
Right, but I'm even like thinking though that, like sometimes introducing a CPC member who may not have as much time to participate can slow things down and kind of get in the way versus helping. Like, we should make sure that if somebody needs help, they get the help. But by forcing them to be there to be a CPC person, you can actually, be a drag versus a help.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's sort of implied that if somebody proposes something, we as CPC members know that, either somebody in our group should help this person, or then if not, then maybe it's not of value to us and isn't something we should be helping push forward. I don't know.
On the other hand, I'd be happy to remove the champion requirement entirely, and for us to then add it in later if we do identify the situation being such that we are inundated with proposals that do not merit our attention.
That's fine too.
Plus one, Emily. Yeah, let's not solve a problem. I would love to have that problem, right? So.
Yeah, and I'm also like, one of the things that's sort of guiding me in this discussion is like, the more we can simplify this, I think the better,
I do think it's worth like setting the expectation that if you propose something, you need to have somebody to push it forward. Like it shouldn't just be, hey, I think you should do this.
Yeah, here's an idea, you can do it.
Right, like here's an idea. It should be, here's an idea and I'm willing to push it forward. As kind of the expectation I have in mind anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's like,
oh, go ahead.
No, I don't think we're suggesting getting rid of the champion entirely, right? We're suggesting getting rid of the requirement that they need to be part of the CPC. Or are we talking about totally getting rid of the idea of champions?
I think maybe getting rid of the term champion, but we should maybe have some language that says if you propose something, you need to be able and willing to kind of help work through that process. Is that accurate?
Or be
seems
able
good.
to convince someone on the CPC to champion it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, the existing wording is not terrible. It's like what I've modified a little bit, but it could be like, before landing, it needs to have an identified champion. This could be anybody who will be pushing the proposal to its conclusion.
Yeah.
So you can open a PR that says, hey, you should do this, but before we actually say this is an incubating proposal, somebody's identified as the person who's actually going to move it forward.
Or helping you push it through success, because I assume that if they care that much, they probably would become a regular member.
That does set up a consideration in if we do allow proposals to be coming in with champions effectively outside our relatively small community, then what if that champion just goes silent? I think we ought to have language somewhere that has some number of weeks or months of inactivity being being followed by effectively dropping a proposal due to inactivity.
Sure, we can add a little language, I think, around that. Just perhaps as like sort of after these details, just a couple of notes, stale proposals will be closed, those kinds of things. Just a heads up, we have 12 minutes, and I think we've got some concrete thoughts here that I think we can have in a PR. So I just want to make sure that we kind of capture those, and then some of these extra thoughts or refinements or whatnot can be done in the PR process. With that, I will look at the notes here. So remove the term staging. Also, when you get a second, Michael, if you can rename that file, removing the term staging as well.
Can we do that in the GUI or the UI?
Try it.
Oh, right here. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
So 2 phases, incubating and ready for review / approval. And I guess we should just be ready for approval. And is it clear in your text there, Michael, that approval is like CPC and potentially board review?
Right, let me see. Are ready for approval by the CPC. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next item on the list here is that the incubating proposal process can have as many PRs as desired, each essentially providing something like a snapshot.
Right. I'm just looking at where to put that in this first section.
I just put it at the end. I just read through it, and that seems to make sense.
Okay, so
This
cutting and pasting.
Sure, yeah. And I'm looking at the next item is the PR for approval is moving artifacts into place. So I'm looking at your text here to see if it kind of states that. It doesn't seem to, so that's something we can perhaps add at the end of that one as well.
Sorry, the next one
is the ready for review or approval phase is, moving the files into place.
Right, okay.
I think again, that could just go at the end. We can kind of work the wording in the PR itself. I don't know if we need stage 3 complete, right?
No, I just hadn't deleted that yet.
Yeah, and don't mind me, Michael. I'm kind of talking out loud as you write.
Okay.
We have 9 minutes. I think the idea of a definition of done or checklist of sorts, maybe we can iterate that idea in the pull request. I guess if we have time, we can talk about it more now, but that's the last bullet on the list that I had. I think Sarah, maybe Jordan, I can't remember who had mentioned that thought in the last meeting, the definition of done idea.
I don't think it was me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to take credit for it, but I think it was Jordan.
Either way. Well, we can. I'm not sure what that would look like in a generic sort of way. But it's something we can think about, I guess. But this is great. I think this is a huge improvement. I'm sorry, go ahead, Emily.
Is there a need for us to have a stage or something sort of after a proposal is accepted, but before for the actual implementation of whatever that proposal is about, before it's actually up and running and done? Some proposals certainly would be just a decision and then that it's been decided, it's been done. But some things like starting up the collab network or some of the other aspects that we've got in the process here, they aren't so clearly. It's not just a matter of deciding to do it, it's a matter of also doing it. Does that need to have something, as in, no, put it another way, do we need a stage past the stage of effectively done, where it's done and done, it doesn't need to be considered anymore because there's nothing anymore to consider about it?
I'm more like, once it's landed, it should be done. And hopefully the landing of it can move. So for example, for the collaboration network, there were changes to the governance.
Mm-hmm.
So those were done at the same time. Actually, running the program and stuff, I think I would say that it's done when you land it. separately, maybe we need a review, because like any program, it could be like, well, did we actually get it up and running? Is it still actually active or something? But I don't know that leaving the proposal in that state necessarily helps.
It seems like the ownership then transfers to the CPC to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things that need to happen.
Yeah, and I think like Sarah's work on the supporter program, you know, there's a lot that's kind of going into that, including, you know, design and assets and stuff. So that's all kind of still a part of the process, I think. But I could see how some of that even would be, you know, could potentially be, well, that's phase 2. We've landed this. Now let's, you know, continue implementing it. But, you know, the work will still need to go on. I think it's a good question, though, Emily. The other thought I had is, how are we capturing like essentially approved proposals? Do we capture those and keep them in a directory that, you know, to kind of show the things that have gone through the process, or is that something we care about?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think it's helpful for people to see what's made it through.
Right. So I think though we can just, like there was a directory where we had the different stages. If we just have like an approved directory, and your PR will move some of the artifacts out of the proposal into the main place, but the sort of outline, the first outline that says what it is, could still end up there in the approved section. Yeah, essentially like the README would go to the approved section and maybe include a link to the PR that moved all the files into place or something. Yeah, something like that. Although, can you refer to your own PR? I don't know. Maybe.
Yes, you can.
Okay. So maybe we can even capture that either here in the work you're doing right now, Michael, or something we should think about adding to the PR. Right. Okay. Let's just see. I'm going to. Okay. The PR should include, maybe if I just make that a bullet point. Mm-hmm. Do we already kind of do that? We already have like an approved proposal. Yes, we may want to even, as a follow-on PR, or maybe even a before landing the work that you're doing. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm looking at the way the proposals directory is currently set up, and there is stage 0, stage 1, stage 2. So we may want to reconfigure, or whatever people say, to kind of, do this sort of work too. So if you create maybe this PR that you're working on, Michael, then one of us can add to that PR potentially to reshuffle these files and kind of align it with what we're deciding here. Okay, maybe, yeah. So if you think of it when you commit this, you could just add a note to say, take a look at the directory structure in the proposals directory to align with this work. Yep. Just directory. I will just add that as a comment once I create the PR. How about that? Perfect. And if you want to stop sharing, I could show you my puppy. Sure. How do I stop? There we go. Stop share. Let's see. He's sleeping right now, but he'll probably wake up once I start talking about him. Yep, of course.
Oh, what a cutie.
Such a good boy. Hi, puppy.
What's his name?
His name is Teddy.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Oh, buddy. Oh.
Those kinds of dogs, I can't think of the name, but they're very loving always. That's great.
Yeah, he's primarily a black lab, which they are really loving, really good family dogs. But we think he's got shepherd in him.
Lab.
Yeah.
Have a lab. Very loving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
I think he's got some shepherd in him too, because he bites his sister's ankles and tries to like kind of herd her, and
It's a feature.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm talking about you. Great. All right, cool. Well, good work, everybody. Good meeting. I appreciate everybody's time and energy, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Great.